Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Working for You, the weekly radio and television program where the people of St. Kitts and Nevis can be informed about how their government, elected by the people, is working for the people. I want to thank Miss Jamiela MacPhail, who ably conducted Working for You for the last 2 editions of Working for You while I was away. I think that she did an excellent job. Today, we do not have a guest on Working for You, but what we are going to do is that we are going to bring you the Prime Minister's opening statement at his press conference this Monday past. But I want to highlight a few things from that press conference, from his opening statement, and then we would play you the full statement. The Prime Minister gave an account of his visit, his official visit to the Republic of China, Taiwan. Of course, whenever the Prime Minister travels and whatever he does, he likes to give an account of what he's doing. And that really speaks to the transparency and accountability of the government. The government is not on a joy ride. The government is working for the people. And while we were in Taiwan, the Prime Minister, his delegation, were well received. And we had quite a packed agenda, a schedule, where we saw meetings with several Taiwanese officials of the government. Of course, the key high point, the highlight of that visit was the inauguration, the historic inauguration of the 14th President and Vice President of the Republic of China on Taiwan. Of course, it is the first time in Taiwan's history that it has had a female president in the person of Dr. Tsai Ing-wen. And at that ceremony, of course, it was so noticeable by the very many performances, Taiwan's history and its struggle for democracy, which is really the pride of Taiwan. They pride themselves on being a democratic country. We were also well received, and the hospitality of the Taiwanese was fantastic, was tremendous. They displayed great hospitality, a warm people, a hospitable people. While in Taiwan, of course, the Prime Minister mentioned the visit to the Taipei Police Department, the CCTV center, where we were able to see how Taiwan really operates in terms of its CCTV and how that has been able to, in that society, to help with the reduction in crime and so on. And we had many other important meetings while in Taiwan. our visit to Penghu, and we saw that they are going to have in 2018 the conference to do with the most beautiful bays in the world, and how that for them will boost their tourism. We also saw their marine research center and how they're doing so well in terms of fisheries and so on, much that we can actually learn from. The Prime Minister also spoke about the economy at his press conference and the investor confidence, the strong investor confidence in St. Kitts and Nevis, and really showed that for those who are trying to portray that St. Kitts and Nevis economy is in trouble, that they are just playing politics and giving misleading information. He was able to show that several hotels continue in terms of their construction and, towards their completion and so on, and that the fiscal performance, according to IMF, of St. Kitts and Nevis is to be admired. That St. Kitts and Nevis is one of the leading economies, of course, in the ECCU and in the Caribbean and Latin America. The Prime Minister also spoke about law and order, which continues to be a challenge for us. But nonetheless, I think that the government is doing all that it can in providing the police with the necessary equipment, the infrastructure that it needs in its continued fight against the criminal elements within our society. He also spoke about Parliament, that Parliament will convene towards the end of June 2016, where a new speaker will be nominated. And he also touched on the RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, with its increase in fees on savings accounts and so on, and really showed solidarity with the people. And he wishes, of course, that RBC would reconsider its fees. There's very little that the government can do in terms of the fees that the Royal Bank of Canada is applying, and there's very, very little that the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank can do as well. But the Prime Minister has appealed for RBC, of course, to be considerate in its implementation of the fees, because it's the poor people that basically are being affected. And he also spoke about the SIDF. The SIDF, which basically, is a multi-million-dollar entity that somehow that Ernst and Young, a review by Ernst and Young, has found that the SIDF operated in a manner that is unbecoming of a multi-million-dollar entity, where the Board of Councillors and the senior management operated with scant regard for proper procedures and best practices that are expected of those with fiduciary responsibilities. I want to leave you here with the opening statement of the Prime Minister at his press conference.
This morning, the Honorable Prime Minister will take the opportunity to address developments arising from his recently concluded visit to the Republic of China, Taiwan, as well as the strong state of the economy, the administration of the Severance Fund, the upcoming parliamentary session, the progress of police investigations, and law and order. At this juncture, I would like to acknowledge the ministers of government who are here with us today. We have the Honorable Sean Richards, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Education. We have the Honorable Vance Amory, who is the Senior Minister and Minister of Nevis Affairs et al., as well as the Premier of Nevis. We have the Honorable Mark Brantley, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Aviation. We have the Honorable Lindsay Grant, who is the Minister of Tourism et al., the Honorable Ian Liburd, who is the Minister of Public Infrastructure et al., the Honorable Vincent Byron Jr., who's a Senator, Attorney General, and Minister of Justice et al., and we have the Honorable Wendy Phipps, who's Senator and Minister of State within the Ministry of Health et al. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of ambassadors, permanent secretaries, and other officials in the administration. We have here Mr. Michael Powell, who is Special Envoy in the Office of the Prime Minister, Ambassador Sidney Osborne, who is the Ambassador to CARICOM and the OECS, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security et al., Mr. Osmond Petty, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Mr. Osbert de Souza, Mr. Duncan Watley, who is the Director of People's Empowerment in the Office of the Prime Minister, and we have the Police High Command. Oh, I also acknowledge the presence of the Financial Secretary, Mrs. Hilary Hazel, and we also have the Cabinet Secretary, Mrs. Josephine Huggins. I also acknowledge the Director General of the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, Mr. Lesroy Williams. We also have Mr. Samal Duggins, I see, Mr. Richard Keynes, and Dave King of Brams Hill Policing Advisors here with us today. Finally, I extend a warm welcome to esteemed members of the press corps. When asking your questions, please state your name and the news organization you represent for the benefit of everyone. I will now invite the Honorable Prime Minister to make his opening remarks. After making his statement, the Honorable Prime Minister will take your questions. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, cabinet colleagues, government officials, and representatives of the media. I deem it an honor to be able to report to you again regarding my stewardship as Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis and that of the government which I have the privilege to lead. Team Unity, you would recall, came into office with a mandate to make life better for our people, create more jobs, and to provide more opportunities for our people across a range of endeavors. We pledge a better way of doing things and to change from the culture of dependence on government to one of a more constructive relationship of government facilitation and incentivizing entrepreneurship. We pledge to work hard to provide excellent performance to our citizens and residents alike and to foster the environment for our people and country to excel. This government, in a way, is unlike any other, but in very good ways. We are a coalition of three parties working together as one entity, and we are working for the common good. We have no junior nor senior partner. We are all partners in government. We approach the government as a whole. The electorate on February 16th voted for a unity government, not a PLP government, nor a CCM government, nor a PAM government. I am grateful that to date we have operated at a high level of unity, of purpose, of trust, and maturity. And we have made decisions in the best interest of all the people, and not some of the people. We have avoided the scourge of victimization. We have honored and rewarded loyal, competent, and professional service. Our Team Unity movement covers a wide range of interests, philosophies, and viewpoints. And yet we welcome more people to join our movement. Come, be a part of positive change in our country, part of the paradigm shift towards a new culture in government and governance. This new approach to governing on behalf of the people, rather than the party loyalists, the political oligarchy, or the parasitical oligarchy, has received outstanding support from those who believe in the new way and from those who believe in unity, and it has won us converts to our cause. That is why 70% of the people have given positive reviews of Team Unity's performance and policies and our new ethos of accountability. Speaking of accountability, I now report on my official visit to the Republic of China, Taiwan. I am pleased to report that my delegation and I completed our official visit to Taiwan, and we returned home last Wednesday. We thank God for traveling mercies. The visit to the inauguration and the historic swearing in of Taiwan's 14-term president and vice president was made more memorable as its first female rose to take the oath as president of Taiwan. All of Taiwan's diplomatic allies attended the ceremony. I repeat, all of Taiwan's diplomatic allies, but other countries were also represented at the inauguration. Some 700 foreign invitees from 59 countries participated. I was accompanied on this trip by the Honorable Vance Amory, our senior minister, and his spouse, the Honorable Vincent Byron Jr., our Attorney General and his spouse, and Mr. Lesroy Williams, Director General of Skinnis. The invitation at the courtesy and expense of the government of Taiwan reinforced St. Kitts and Nevis's solidarity and support for Taiwan's fledgling democracy and our continued interest in partnership and cooperation with the newly elected government of Her Excellency the President, Dr. Tsai Ing-wen. Such an outreach with our most significant bilateral ally of long standing cannot be faulted, save by the maladjusted opposition, who, while in government, ingratiated themselves itself on every occasion with Taiwan. Now in purgatory, its members are trivializing the very relationship that they so robustly pursued in government. Clearly, the maladjusted opposition is in a quandary, led to a new law by a leader whose time has elapsed, but yet he keeps wandering and meandering on. I am happy to report that our visit to Taiwan and our engagements have benefited the country immensely. This visit has led to successful outcomes with respect to the following. Law and order will benefit from Taiwan's support for our CCTV project. We expect experts from Taiwan to be here to fine-tune the ambit of technical support and other resources for this particular project. Secondly, financial support has been committed for the purchase of vehicles for law enforcement agencies, including the police and the Defense Force. We acknowledge receipt of vehicles to date for the police and for Her Majesty's prison. Indeed, just last week, the Permanent Secretary was part of a handing over of critical transportation to these two entities. We are grateful for the imminent release of further funds to upgrade the fleet of transportation for the law enforcement agencies. Indeed, and this weekend, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ian Quealy, engaged me extensively with respect to that particular resource. The third area of support is that the proposed National Heroes Park to be constructed on lands abutting the Kim Collins Highway will be financed by the government of Taiwan. Preparatory works then will commence on or before July 2016. And the estimated cost of that, we have said previously at a press conference, has been pegged at $2 million. These projects are estimated to cost over EC $13 million. There are other projects which we discussed there and which will be the subject of ongoing discussions between the two allies. If we were on a joyride, we would have been wasting public funds. But this government does not believe and does not entertain joyrides. We believe in diligently pursuing the people's agenda. On this trip, we secured firm commitment of $13 million for our country. The country always will benefit under Team Unity administration. Nevis will benefit fully from the support for the CCTV because both islands will be fully equipped from city to town with the CCTVs. And of course, the allocation of vehicles will be equitably done across the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, having regard to the relative demand and exigencies of law enforcement. The National Heroes Park, of course, we have said since last year, shall become the home for all of our heroes. We wouldn't have one hero there, one hero somewhere else, one somewhere else, etc. We want one home in which we honor all of our heroes, in which we have information being provided so that people could get an understanding what it is made these people heroes, what has been their contribution, what have been their values, the assistance that they have brought to our growth and development as a country. Our diplomacy then to Taiwan has borne fruits. And there are ongoing projects of which persons are aware and which we have relied on the assistance of Taiwan. Education, healthcare, water distribution, CPL games, security, etc. All these we have been able to rely upon the assistance of that country over the last 14 months. But some of those programs, for example, the scholarship program has been an ongoing one throughout many years. Yes, this is a fresh start in our case from the joyrides to Libya, where persons traveled after the 2010 elections. Lest we forget, some received brown envelopes at that meeting in Libya, but the country of St. Kitts and Nevis received nothing but a hiatus in government. Now for 2 weeks, there was no government sworn in St. Kitts and Nevis, while the rejected leader went off on a joyride that must have been to Libya after the 2010 elections. Yes, this is a far cry from the joyride to India with special friends, one of whom was falsely referred to in the Indian press as the foreign minister of St. Christopher and Nevis. None of these unsavory things would ever be part of any travel plans of the Team Unity administration. Having put that trip in the context, I want to spend some time looking at the economy. That is where our ability to deliver flows from. It is not only the locals who are impressed by the work of the competent leadership of Team Unity. Every international and regional organization with credibility, with repute, and legitimacy has hailed my government's performance, particularly our astute management of the economy. We have reported before, but it bears repetition. The governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has commended us as the best performing economy in the sub-region for 2015, and our anticipated top performance in the currency union for 2016. The CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, in February 2016, recognized that we are not just an above-average performer, we were the best in the region for 2015, and we are on course to repeat this feat in 2016. The United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean has hailed St. Kitts and Nevis under Team Unity as a lead performer among all countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, save for Panama. where we have outshone, for example, the largest economy in the world in terms of our economic growth rate, the USA, Mexico, Jamaica, Trinidad, Brazil, Bahamas. All of those countries come after us in terms of the economic performance in 2015. Choose any country within Latin America and the Caribbean, and by extension, the entire world, and we stand higher in performance than anyone else does. We were better than all in Latin America and the Caribbean, save for Panama in 2015, and we will excel again in 2016. The biased criticism of the election losers reflects their maladjustment because the election losers are unhappy. They wish that others would also be. The most recent evaluation has come from the IMF in its recent press release, and indeed in their discussion with me with respect to the Article 4 consultation, which was carried out in March, am I getting it right? April 20th to about May 3rd or 4th, the Financial Secretary advises. That report and that press release commended the government for its performance and note, in spite of challenges, this government can anticipate a 3.5% growth rate. The IMF described the 2016 economic prospects as being strong. Our projected growth rate is way above the average for the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. My government, of course, will not take all the credit. The people of St. Kitts and Nevis, our citizens, the residents, and visitors alike must take credit because it is our collective responses as consumers, investors, producers, and government that make or break the economy. One thing is sure, our economy is moving ahead, and we are grateful that work is continuing on a number of projects. Koi resorts and residents, for example, the work there continues apace, and that particular facility is looking at opening early in 2017. At the last trek, over 126 people were at work. At Tilloff, rebranded as Radisson, there has been a hiatus, but we have been advised by the management that work will start again apace. Indeed, the last inspection by the person we have employed to, as it were, provide update and review the performances of these projects under the CBI has indicated that there were 24 locals on site and much of the work was internal. Indeed, those who are observant may have recognized that in at least 2 properties, you are now seeing windows, etc., being empaneled in the building. So work is going. They told us that they are waiting on some materials which are to come. At the embassy suites, by the last record by the inspector, 85 persons were on the job. At the range, development, Park Hyatt, sometimes Kia, in the national community, we tend to use these names interchangeably because they refer to a single investment in a particular location on the southeast. 564 persons are in employment, and another 200 are required. That then is the single largest of these projects on foot, and that is going extremely well. Indeed, they are contemplating the possibility of running another shift to ensure that the target time is not being lost. So we want to commend all these. At Rendezvous Hill, 50 employees were on site. And again at St. Kitts Castle, some 27 employees were engaged doing site preparation, excavation, etc. What this speaks to is the ongoing confidence of investors in the policies of this government, in the growth that is We are incomparable with the good performance everywhere. And we would have, perhaps the opposition would have liked that all of these projects collapse. But they have not. They are moving on because they have the confidence that this government and the country are committed to the expansion and to private individuals playing a critical role in the development. What about the future? John Giuliani from the Royal St. Kitts Hotel, better known as Dr. He is to begin construction shortly and 17 commercial shops, 17,000 square feet of commercial space, including restaurants, gift shops, jewelry stores, are to get started in Frigate Bay, starting soon, within a few months. And this will be followed by another phase of expansion of hotel condos. Other projects, of course, will get started in the second half. We can assure that from the government end, that apart from these private sector projects, Ross University is to engage School of Veterinary Medicine in substantial construction work. Delta Petroleum will be starting their new bulk operation facility in the Birdwalk area. That will start this year, and we could go on and on. But it's not just the private sector that is engaged. This government, because we manage responsibly, we have the resources to also ensure adequate injection on a timely basis of support from the public sector to keep the economy performing. So we shall start construction of our housing program. $30 million we have committed for housing construction work this year. At a later date, the details will be forthcoming, but that will start this year. The Bastia High School, we are committed to a construction start this year. The National Heroes Park, we have referred to. We are constructing a new government printery. And of course, the work started on the John Gums building will be brought to completion, as are those at the Treasury. Enough will be happening in the country to ensure that the country continues on the growth path. New and expanding projects of the type I have just outlined mean jobs for those who are working in the diverse skill set called for by construction and other areas. Jobs, for example, for the steel bender in Charlestown in McKnight, the carpenter and mason in Phillips, jobs for the small contractor on George Street and Sandy Point. Equally, there's a place for the joiners, the laborers. With jobs, it means that their bills can now be paid. The trucker will get more business, as will those with heavy equipment, and more people will have money in their pockets. The range development I advised earlier is looking for 200 plus employees. And we want to encourage you, wherever there are people not working, who are interested in an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, encourage them to go to the range to take the job. Importantly, if they are challenged in finding locals, whether from St. Kitts or Nevis, then they will have a case to make in terms of recruiting those skills from abroad. The country needs that development. We want the majority of our people to benefit from that, and so we are encouraging them. Indeed, we have advised that those on the PEP program who have certain skills, that they should also be shown the route to the range project so that more permanent jobs, better paying jobs can be made available to them. And we make the commitment that if they go where the jobs are and the jobs come to some finalization, then we will restore them back to the PEP. But we are giving them an opportunity to upgrade their earning capacity, their take-home pay. And that can be better done in those private sector entities. Equally in Nevis, there is good news. The Four Seasons Resort estate will be having significant construction activity. And also the Candy Resort development, Tower Hill development, and Longstone House in Charlestown. All these are projects that are expected to come on stream in the next few months, going to the end of the year and continuing into 2017. So we are doing well, and we will continue to do well as far as the economy is concerned. The IMF, in its Article 4 consultation on St. Kitts and Nevis, has commended our performance and our policies, and it vindicated much of what this team unity government has been doing. It says our economy is strong. This truth has been told to us by our own experts in the Ministry of Finance. Calvin Edwards, Hilary Hazel are here, the ECCB, the CDB, ECLAC, and now the IMF. In spite of such objective evidence, the maladjusted opposition would tell their malicious tale of an economy in trouble. Our strong fiscal situation is in sync with the robust health of the economy. And I want just briefly to give the most updated picture. And history would record that at no other point in the past has such critical information, factual information being presented with regard to the health of the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis. Every month when I come here almost to a T, I ensure that we give you as up-to-date a picture so that you can judge from yourself, avoid the noise, and deal with the facts. This is what the Ministry of Finance have recorded. The preliminary data shows that for the period January to April 2016, can't get more current than that, the federal government would have realized a recurrent account surplus of $84.7 million, an overall surplus of $99.2 million, and a primary surplus of $113 million. These results surpass the targets for the period, with the surplus and recurrent account exceeding the budget by 30.6%, while the overall and primary surpluses were higher than expected by 106.7% and 104.2% respectively. That is, we are doing well when adjudged against the budget that we laid in Parliament. We are doing better on revenue, and we are doing better on the control of expenditure. We are therefore managing the country well. And it is this astute management of the economy that will allow us from time and time again when necessary to insert the public sector into the marketplace to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis never go to the dogs. It is this astute management of the economy that will ensure never again will we go back to the IMF under the watch of a team unity administration. It is this astute management of the economy, not wasting it, not engaging joyrides, that will ensure never again for 3 years in succession civil servants will be denied their increments. It is this astute management of the economy under the watch of Team Unity administration that will ensure never again under the watch of Ian Libert, of Minister of Energy, we have a whopping 85% increase in electricity tariffs. That is what astute management does for a country, and that is what the records reflect that we are providing. We are impacting on jobs, we are impacting on income, we are impacting positively on economic growth. And in a previous press conference, I relate to the reports from Social Security. Over 24,300 plus jobs being created under the watch of Team Unity, the largest number ever recorded in the records of Social Security. These new situation. This is a new situation for the country. The IMF, in its consultation, again herald the reform that we are undertaking with respect to PEP, making it more sustainable and promising to support us in making PEP a veritable training and skills enhancement facility. I want, on that score, to commend Mr. Osbert D'Souza, the Permanent Secretary, who has overall oversight over this program, and the management of PEP for an excellent job to date. So significant has been the reforms in the PEP program, the savings generated, the reorganization, that the IMF noticed it and praised it in its Article 4 report. Their work has saved us from paying hundreds of ghost workers placed on the payroll by the former administration, and these people were not obliged to do any work. All they were asked to make sure they vote on February 16th. It was a mere ruse to get their votes on election day. The work of D'Souza and others has resulted in nearly 200 persons whose employer had them on the PEP for too long at minimum level, are undertaking now to provide them with permanent jobs and higher wages. And we found that once you went to these employers and put reason, they responded. So we wondered why the Douglas administration had the government and the country under pressure, $5 million being spent every month to have people in private places who could well pay for them. This is really what we spoke about when we spoke in the campaign of the concept of a livable wage. That is what we promised the PEP workers, a better arrangement, permanent jobs, and more of them being moved from the poverty line. The work of D'Souza and others has resulted in some 50 of the PEP people now moving to self-employment. We have given them a fresh start, a new meaning, a new value, a new substance to their life. This is what we promise, and this is what we are fulfilling, because the government is working for the people. And in the Article 4 report and the discussions which we have had, they described our reforms at the CBI as comprehensive. Comprehensive. They have taken note of what we have done. They have taken note of the logic of our approach to policy implementation. Bring the people in, overhaul the CBI, and then move about in a steady and organized way to implement the reforms. Because it's no use having 20 reforms and they are not being actioned. And the IMF has come in, an international body with weight and muscle, and says you have done a very good job with respect to that particular program. We are happy about what we have done. We are happy that when we came in, that particular program was in the ICU, and we have rescued it. And with it, we have rescued the integrity, most importantly, of the program and of St. Kitts and Nevis. For the last 14 or so, we don't have no report from the US and the Canadians and the EU that are of a worry to us. And we make no mistake to say that we have been working closely with them, because we are a responsible member of the international community. And while we will defend sovereign rights, we can't get caught up on the fig leaf of sovereignty. We can't get caught up so that we forget that we are not an island on our own, that we are part of a broader international space, and we have to ensure that our own actions are responsible so that they do not create security risks to other countries. It is the security risks that the Douglas administration created that in 2014 May led to the FinCEN advisory. And the negative consequence of that continues to be experienced. That is part of what the conversation of the risking is about. It is how the work of the Douglas administration dirtied the financial space. Because in that report in May, the US said illicit actors were being encouraged and given support by the then administration. And it went on to say it couldn't trust the word of the leader that was. Couldn't trust the word. That is from where we have salvaged this program. And we admit there's still a lot of work to be done. Because you couldn't in just 1 year and do all the damage to our relations with the US, to our relations with Canada, each of which publicly, as it were, pilloried us in terms of the performance of the administration. So we will continue to do good work there. And we will move to the next phase of doing more aggressive promotion and marketing of the program, because we have a program now that in our view is the best in terms of its ability to deliver. We can deliver within 75 days against the world best average of about 90. We have introduced a case management system which no one else has, and which allows for greater accountability. But more than that, we undertook legislative reforms, and when the next parliament comes, we go back again to look at the escrow accounts and how those are managed so that people do not lose confidence in our program. So we will continue in that. It is my government view that every able-bodied person who is willing and able can find work in St. Kitts and Nevis. And equally we are concerned because in every marketplace the economy is such that some people, hopefully a few, will lose work with respect to changing demands, etc., technology or marketing and so on. And that brings us then to the issue of the severance fund and the long service gratuity award. Before the election, we heard that there was to be an amendment to the Employment Act, I think it was then, that provide for severance to allow persons who had served for 10 years to be able to benefit from what was called long service gratuity. That in itself is a good goal. We are not quarreling with that. What we are quarreling with is that the last administration did not properly manage the program. And in particular, it did not create a special source of financing to allow for those who may claim under the long service gratuity provision to be able to do so. And the results are that in 2016, we find that there are claims in relation to the severance fund and the long service gratuity program going as far back to 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. This is a difficulty that we inherited because the government never looked, never entertained the actuary coming in and making a proper assessment of what it will cost to sustain such a policy initiative. And what we do know, in keeping with the pattern of the last administration, the audit report of the Director of Audit indicates that the severance fund was consistently in deficit over the last 3 years before we bade goodbye to the Douglas administration. In 2012, the severance fund was in deficit of $5.4 million. No money there, they overspent. In 2013, $5.1 million. 2014, $5.5 million. And while that administration was entertaining investment in Kittitian Hill, was entertaining investment in Christophe Harbour, where it really mattered for ordinary people to be able to get a little something, having completed their work in particular places, no provision was made. The fund was run red indicating deficit. And so we are working hard because, you see, We understand we are the government. We will accept all that we have inherited. Bad inheritance, we will contend with it because we are able to change the fortunes. We are creative enough as a team unity administration to solve the problems that we have inherited. Sure, it is not easy, but we are working diligently, and the senior minister, the Honorable Vance Henry, and his team have spent considerable time in attempting to document what is happening. How is it that some persons were paid and some left aside because of their politics? How come you paid some people just before the election and others who were in the scheme, the waiting line from 2009, they were not paid? That is a question that the former administration would have to answer. And so when they tried their mischief and misinformation, well, Team Unity stopped the long service gratuity. Nothing like that. And you could only stop it with a law, because it was a law that enabled it to happen. To reverse it, you have to go back to the parliament, and everyone will know. Just as we went back to parliament to undo the Saturday voting. That is how you have to do to address things that came to legislative engagement. The problem is the Douglas administration bankrupted the severance fund. There was no money there. And that is what the audit report has said to us. Consistently, they didn't heed that advice and they made no provision. That is why we need the surpluses that we are talking about. But you see how now we have to use what has been the result of our own effective management of the economy to deal with the problems that we inherited. I want to quickly turn to law enforcement. And again, we as a government came to office pledging that we will do all that we can to bring law and order, restore law and order to the country, making our people feel safe again. I believe our record in that regard is outstanding. We brought the strategic plan, we brought a service improvement plan, we brought new leadership. I dare say that the government support in this regard over the short span of 14 to 15 months has been unprecedented. We have invested in the forensic lab, in vehicles, in training and monitoring of the police. We brought in a brand new canine unit. We engaged Motorola digital radio system, putting that to work so that our police officer, whether in Sandy Point pursuing a bandit or in Charlestown, can be communicating with each other, whether in mountain or in sea. They're in contact. That, they tell us, was so critical for the fight to keep our country safe that we were prepared to go all the way in ensuring it happened quickly. We went, and even as a way of helping to motivate, for some 10, 15 years, Mr. Quealy would know better than I do, no movement in the risk pay. And in one blow, we went and we increased it 20%. And if you do a good job, the financial secretary would advise the government that she can find the resources to treat with that particular matter again. We will do all, I repeat, all that we can to ensure that our country is kept safe. And with the support we are expecting from the Republic of China, Taiwan, the police will be better resourced than they ever have been in the last couple of years. And so we are not going to get caught up with the temper tantrums that have come belatedly from the leader that was about his concern for crime, because this belies his past utterance from that leader that, what did he say then? He said this outrage about crime was like water on his back. He come on and he go off, like when you throw water on the back of a duck. That was his response to an escalation of crime, which gained international notoriety under his watch. when he inherited in 95 a homicide of about 3 to 5. Under his watch in 2011, it peaked at 35 homicides. And St. Kitts thereafter developed the label of being a homicide capital of the world. That is his legacy. Could we, in the space of 15 months, undo what was not done in 20 years? Could we? Reasonable men would conclude no. But have we in the last 15 months indicated a serious commitment to enhancing and strengthening the apparatus for law and order in this country? Everyone could say, without being prompted, yes, Team Unity has. Yes, we have been working. And the results are being seen. So we give the police their resource, and we hope that they will deliver on the backs, for the sorry, of the people of the country. The same man who is talking about crime in his halcyon days gave the imagery and the message to the country that it was a good thing to be bad, to be a vagabond. That was the image he sold when he said that he was a #1 inciter in the country, and he referred to the badge of dishonor for 1993. What message was he giving? And they come belatedly now, fainting and pretending that they have a concern with crime. They want to make politics out of it. And we will not allow them. And we will not allow the country to forget. We are prepared to work with them constructively on a plan to redeem and restore law and order. We are prepared to involve them because we believe in relation to law and order there really should be no politics. Because the crimes and the criminals, they don't respect party color. They don't respect places in which they are going to begin to have their shootout and the homicides will take place. They don't make a distinction between rural parts and city parts. We want all of us to work together on that. And so we say to them, if they were to wise up and to be constructive, we are prepared to engage them in constructive ways. We are bringing in experts. We have said to the Permanent Secretary, let the experts share with the opposition what we intend to do. Because we want a non-political response to crime. Nothing is wrong with the opposition saying that crime is high. It is the hypocrisy of attempting to lay blame on us when they know what we inherited. They know what they left behind. That is where we have the problem. Quickly, I want to say that the Parliament will convene towards the end of June 2016, and a new Speaker will be nominated. I want again to record our thanks to the former Speaker, Mr. Franklin Brand, and by extension his family. And we will move a resolution in the next sitting of Parliament recording our deep appreciation for his vision of a functional Parliament, doing the people's business with decorum, with class and efficiency. The Parliament, on that occasion, will debate several bills, and some will be introduced and read for the first time. Quickly, in relation to the Royal Bank of Canada matter. The Royal Bank of Canada, we are aware, took the unprecedented step to significantly increase its fees without adequate public engagement. The public has expressed how unacceptable the RBC's approach is. There is still time, in our view, for the RBC to reconsider its fees, the timing of its implementation, and the quantum. It is regrettable that such a serious matter would be met by partisan political opportunism. The very Labour politicians who were in the Parliament talking about the new Banking Act when we brought it in 2015 are now saying that the act is needed. In 2015, When we were having debate, you should have heard Nigel Carty. You should have heard Denzel Douglas. You should have heard the member for number 3. All of them like say after me saying foolishness in relation to the bill that we had brought to enhance the financial sector. All of them critical of it. Critical of it. Finding little things on which to pick on. The bill was bad. The bill was oppressive. The bill tantamounts in their view to a relegation of government's authority to the central bank. They know all of that. And when RBC did what it did without resort to us, they blame us, not RBC. You see the funniness? You understand the state of maladjustment in the opposition? Here is an entity over which this government has no control. If it were National Bank, they could have argued, well, the government has some shareholding in that. But we have no financial interest, no equity interest in the Royal Bank. Royal Bank did, National didn't, Scotia didn't. What does that tell you? It has nothing to do with us. It had to do with them. And they say if we had done something more with the act, the situation would not happen. Again, a fallacious argument. No truth to that. There is nothing in the act now, and the governor of the bank came after my press statement and said that allows them to regulate fees and charges. The tool that the central bank has is the tool of moral suasion with respect to fees. You call them in, you talk to them. You show them rationally why this is bad. But I don't know any central bank engaged except those maybe in some hinterland of some communist country can tell commercial banks in a competitive environment what fees you will charge. As I said in my first statement, that is a matter for the bank and the customers and the moral suasion that can be had from the central bank. That is how that is dealt with. That is why in Canada, perhaps the most sophisticated in terms of its regulation of the financial sector. That is why when we had the global collapse, Canada fared so well because Canada was the best legislated environment for the financial sector. But in Canada, Royal Bank took up their fees too. Just last week, someone sent me to show that as a result of public pressure, they then took a decision to reverse the charges on credit cards and mortgages. So that is in Canada. I wonder if that is premature default. But it shows there is no relevance, there is no logic to what the opposition is peddling. And they are hoping that people are not going to think, that people are not going to research, that people grow up in the fantasy land that I am from the back of the land, and at the back of the land somebody must read and spell for me, rather than I do that for myself. And that era has long passed. That has long passed. Long past. I'm sure if Limor was alive, Limor wasn't going to say I could read for them. Limor will now say I want every citizen and resident in my beloved country to be able to read from pencil for themselves. It's an old-time view that the present leadership is bringing to the politics of back of the land, the politics of incitement and aggression and mischief and manipulation. And that politics, I believe, died. Well, if he ain't died, he went close to that. On the 16th of February 2016, never to be brought back. In an age of enlightenment, it will not work. That is why when we come, we bring the facts. That is why we let you know what the central bank, because you see, they are entitled to the opinion, as crazy as the opinion is. They are not entitled to the facts. The facts stand on their own. whether it is Harris who say it or the AG or them. The facts reliable come from the IMF, come from the ECCB, and come from all of these sources. So that is where we are at in relation to the Banking Act. We will never let the people of St. Kitts and Nevis down, and we'll never be found wanted in relation to these. If we were, when we took the wise decision to bring this Banking Act, the way they went on in the Parliament, we would have said, let us leave it. We went through with it. St. Vincent went through with it. And in St. Vincent, you had the same report of lines. Nothing to do with any lapse on the part of the government. Clearly, because we are on the people's side, we see so many good things happening. Because we are on the people's side, we are rebuilding the Mary Charles Hospital, making it brand new. Because we are on the people's side, we are delivering a mental daycare center to take those with mental problems off the street as a first phase. And the second phase would be how do we keep them for a full day overnight? Because we are listening to the people, we have ensured that we have started work on an oncology unit at the JNF to deal with the challenge of cancer affecting a wide cross-section of people in the country. Because we have been listening to the fisher folks and the advice from the member for number 1, a decompression chamber is now available for those who are suffering from the bends. Because we are in touch with the people, that is why we waived the VAT. And $48 million of revenue was foregone. But look at it now, we still come today because we believe in the economics of a low-tax policy and its impact to generate multiplier benefits to the economy. And we are still in surplus despite of that. The last matter of substance I want to talk about is to update you with respect to the investigations, or better yet, the review that has been undertaken by an international firm of Ernst & Young with respect to the operations of the SIDF. And we know this has been a matter that has troubled the national community for a while. The first phase of that investigation is basically substantially complete. And the review has revealed that the SIDF was operated in a manner unbecoming of a multi-million-dollar entity. The Board of Councillors and senior management operated, in our view, with scant regard for proper procedures and best practices expected of those with fiduciary responsibilities. We are advised that certain transactions are the subject of further inquiries, and as soon as this report is fully complete, I shall address the nation on the state of affairs, particularly as it relates to Kittison Hill and Christophe Harbour, 2 entities in the private sector in which substantial funds had been injected by the SIDF and for which there is a public interest in understanding the how and whereof, etc., relating to these particular entities. So the public can rest assured that we are not delaying with respect to the public interest in understanding what happened. We are not delaying because we understand that there are lessons can be learned. That is why we are doing it. Lessons that can improve upon governance going forward. So what we are doing, we are putting in the context of the public right to know. We are putting it in the context of the public interest in understanding how resources that have been generated in the main as a result of a national asset, how those resources had been dispersed. And if in the end the evidence point to misfeasance or malfeasance, of course, we will let that play out appropriately. What we are doing is a good governance agenda. The final thing I must say is to indicate that the Cabinet want to commend Kim Collins and what has been another superb performance. We congratulate him and all those who work with him. We gather on Sunday. He engaged in another record-breaking performance where he placed first in the 100 meters, clocking a time of 9.93 seconds. I am advised, and I want to believe, that he is the first person in history over the age of 35 to run a time better than 10 seconds. In the process, he has improved upon, I gather, his national record. And so, of 10 points, okay, we want to thank Mr. Richard Keynes, the man of the moment, for coming close. 9.96. So again, we want to commend him. And it shows, as Mr. Keynes have shown to us, age is just a number. It doesn't prevent him from doing the longest walk each day. So there is hope. And we hail our citizens everywhere who have risen to a higher standard and a higher bar and have brought good results to the country. I also equally want to commend my good friends Ben and Telcup Francis, who have celebrated over this week, and if I know them, the celebration will continue for the rest of the year, some 50 plus years of marriage. We want to commend that to all our young people as a standard worthy of emulation. And again, we are happy for them to be able to coexist, make a success of their lives, notwithstanding the challenges, and to be so loving as I often find them to be when I visit them. I want to commend to Bellewin and I think Valentine Grant. I gather they are now joined the good rank of octogenarians. They are now 80 and they have been celebrating. And to wish all those who have enjoyed long life, even a better standing in terms of their health and longevity. Tomorrow I'm advised that at the auspicious grounds of the Governor General, Government House, we will be celebrating and honoring centenarians. So our people are living longer, and we have to find out why, and we have to get these stories captured so that they can become a source of inspiration for many of our people. Many of them have come and have travailed from humble beginnings, and they have lived such a long life, seeing almost all that there is in a modern St. Kitts and Nevis, and we should not let their memory fade without capturing.
Working for you. A weekly talk radio program which highlights developments of national interest and the activities of your St. Kitts Nevis government. Join host Roy Williams as he presents news, views, reports, and interviews about everything regarding the activities of the Team Unity government and the building of our communities and the development of St. Kitts Nevis. Tune in and call in to interact with your government and share your views regarding the upward forward development of your community and our beautiful Twin Island Federation. Working for You is weekly, every Wednesday live from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. on ZIZ Radio, Win FM, and Sugar City FM with rebroadcast on participating stations. Working.